Hello everyone and welcome to another Pax Dei video. My name's Brian if you happen to be new to this channel, but what we're going to be doing in this video is we're going to be talking about my personalized feedback for the developers and the alpha test that just concluded, and I already missed this game. I'm a huge sandbox mmorpg player, but I also am a realist and know that sandbox mmorpgs rely on players to really, in a way, push the content and the story forward. There's a lot to love about this kind of style, and I really hope, and I really feel more than hope, that Pax Dei is set to deliver on these frontiers. It gives me that constant Valheim, but now an MMO, but also incredibly beautiful vibe, and that's something that I've been wanting in a fantasy RPG for a very long time, and I'm so happy to see that the developers are working to make this game a reality. But the game obviously has a couple of things. Now, this is an alpha build. This is alpha footage. All of this is subject to change, and the developer brain in me is absolutely blown away by the progress they showed off with the alpha, how smooth it was, the response to bugs, and just overall how easy it was to get into this game, and the fact that it also supports controller support to a degree. It's not the most perfect system, and I hope that we'll see them have a fully integrated controller gameplay interface, as well as the interface that we saw already. The minimalistic interface is incredible. The fact that it has and uses the Ghost of Tsushima wind guided to your destination trick rather than popping up your screen with all this different information, I really appreciated that. I felt like it really was integrated well into the game. But when it came down to crafting and building, this is something that I ended up running into. It felt like some things would let me actually pull and craft from storage rather than my direct inventory. And I was able to create multiple storage crates to store all the various different collections that I've made. And I think one thing that would go a long way, and I want to preface this with, I understand that we can also ask for so much quality of life that it actually detracts from the nature of what a sandbox MMO is. Like, I'm not advocating that this game become 100% solo friendly, because I know that this is a massively multiplayer online game, and I think that those things need to always be kind of weighed and measured, because sometimes you create inconvenience in a sandbox so that another player can fill the value if they choose to do that. And that's why sandbox MMOs require a huge player base, and that's an important aspect. Not when I say huge player base, I don't think it's going to anywhere near the numbers of World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy 14, for example. Theme park, we know that it works, but sandbox, I think that having a decent sized player base is important, and that's going to be something we'll talk about here in just a minute in this video, more towards the end. Now, outside of being able to just kind of craft from storage, that is, I would say, also located where your crafting is happening, I think there should be some level of radius to the crafting station. That would go a long way in just not having to worry about managing, where everything necessarily is. In fact, that would actually make it a lot more fun for me to be able to create multiple storage crates and then dump in materials of a certain caliber, so that way I can continue to kind of easily manage my own storage and expectations there. But then I would say one of the things that I found myself constantly getting tripped up on, and this is just kind of a me thing, and this is this level of, I don't think this breaks the inconvenience rule. I think it actually would make it accelerate a value, as opposed to constantly having to tab back and forth between things. But I'd love to be able to track my recipes, my builds, the things that I'm working on, as a quest, and not like a quest that's going to give you experience that you would find in a theme park, but as a personalized quest. Like, imagine if you go to an auction house or an auction board and you see, like, hey, we want to buy 500 meats from anybody who's willing to sell. So you have that buy order to be able to right click and track that, so that as you go out and collect various things, you are able to go and then turn that in, and it just kind of gives you that that reminder, while at the same time being respectful of the minimalist UI that they already showed off in the game. And so the same thing goes with building and applying. Like, anything that I can right click and let the game to a degree, kind of create a list so that way as I go out and do those things, I can see my progress happening, which helps me answer various different questions. Otherwise, it ends up being a lot of math on paper, and that's perfectly fine. And I know a lot of people might actually enjoy that aspect. I just think when it comes down to it, being able to pin various recipes saying, hey, this is what I'm working on. All right, I'm going to go gather the materials, or I'm going to go purchase the materials. And then you come back and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that was actually what I was working on. I didn't just get distracted and go in a whole different direction as well. But I don't want to discourage distracted gameplay, because sometimes that's the best. When you step into the world and maybe you have a direction and maybe you go in one way, but then things can change and you end up having an entirely different experience. Now, beyond those two things, because we still are waiting for combat. They're going to be putting more of that in. We knew that going into the alpha. We also know that PvP, that's going to be an important part of this game. And I think that's going to add a lot of the excitement, the drama, and so much more. And so I'm very excited to see how that plays out. But I think essentially what really I want to focus in on is just kind of some thoughts and some questions. Because I see a lot of people asking about, like, how do they keep players in the sandbox? We know people have been trained up on the theme park model, in which that they jump in, they overconsume the game, and then they just burn out. They just go away, and then you end up seeing huge population drops, and then you end up seeing kind of the narrative that the game's dying, and that's called the death spiral, and every MMO pretty much goes through that death spiral. Now, most of this is just opinions of people online. Typically, people who play the game are having a good fun time, but when it comes to a game of this scale, it does require a certain level of financial investment so that essentially you can have a smaller level of player population, but you also still have that level of support so the developers can continue to support the game, make new updates to the game, and overall make the game generally exciting. The theme park versus the sandbox model is going to be something where this pushes back on what people have been trained up against, but that's why I do hope that we might see a level of theme park elements brought into the game to really kind of appease that, or make the transition into a sandbox a little bit easier to understand. Now, this is going to have to be handled with kid gloves, because I'm not advocating at all that this game become a theme park MMO. I'd rather see it maintain its sandbox MMO elements, and while at the same time maybe bringing in something what we call maybe a sand park to a degree, just to essentially give somebody that initial, this is, oh, familiar, I understand what's being asked, and then, oh wait, you mean I can do all these crazy awesome things? And then as players, we also have to be okay that players are going to ebb and flow out of the game, and really, as long as the game's supported and we are excited and we're enjoying it, then that ultimately is all we can truly ask for in this case. Anyway, it sounds like my voice is starting to fail. I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for joining. If you guys want Pax Day content, news coverage, and more, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and welcome into Pax Day Central. This is where the majority of this content is going to exist. I'll still cover some stuff over on Ginger Prime when it comes to discussion, gameplay, live streams, and more. But when it comes down to being able to release you guys a 2-minute short news video, you're in the right spot. You're not going to miss any of the Pax Day news if you want. And be sure to hit that, ring that bell if you guys are wanting more. Anyway, thanks so much for being here. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully I'll see you next time. But until then, take care.